it is now time to announce the This Is Horror Award Novella of the Year. And the winner is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. Eric, welcome to the show and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I am so honored. This is such an amazing award, and I am so grateful for This Is Horror. I'm a big fan of you guys, and I'm just so touched that this novella still means a lot to people 2 years after it was first published.
Yeah, and I think since we're talking about Things Have Gotten Worse, I got to ask you, what have you done to deserve your eyes this week, Eric?
I've written a lot. I've been writing a lot, so I feel like I've deserved my eyes in that way.
Yeah.
Um, you know, That's it's so funny because like I honestly do think of that phrase quite a bit, like that little, what have you done to deserve your eyes? Because it really does creep into my life in the most like unexpected ways. I find myself really thinking and reflecting a lot on like what did I do today that was really meaningful and really special. And whether it's okay, I wrote like 2,000 words, okay, I went and took a walk and maybe I did something nice for my boyfriend, like anything. I really try to it's corny, but like I really do try to be mindful of that like every day.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to keep you on track. I mean, it's just a slightly more macabre version, I suppose, of something like, why did you get out of bed in the morning, or what are you doing to keep on track? It's like let's up the stakes. Why the hell should you
Right.
keep your eyes today? What have you done to deserve that? And
Exactly. Exactly.
And do you remember when did that phrase first occur to you?
It occurred to me pretty organically, like when I was in the process of writing that particular novella. I was at a point in the story when the character was revealing something personal from her past. And it was similar to something like my dad would say to me, when I was just growing up, like, just be thankful for your eyes, your that you can walk, that you can see things, and just be grateful for your health essentially.
Mm.
And I just kind of took that and inverted it and made it this like really macabre thing, like what have you done today to deserve your eyes? But it really just kind of sprang to me like in the moment of creating, which I love. Like I'm definitely I'm somebody who outlines pretty regularly, but I love those moments in writing where something just happens and it's like you didn't plan it to happen, but it just sort of crept up and it was like,
Mm.
okay, this is where we're going. This is this is what we're going to do. I mean, those moments they're very special, and I feel like I'm at a good point now where I can recognize when those moments happen and I can like honor them and be like, okay, this is where I need to go. This is what I need to do with writing this piece. But um yeah, I would just say it happened like very organically and just kind of came to me, and it's spawned like so many people. I've had people like DM me on Instagram that they've gotten like tattoos of that quote
Yeah,
like on their body.
Oh,
so
Like that's
wow.
cool.
insane to me. That's crazy. That's but like so amazing. Like that's so special that somebody put like something I wrote like permanently on their body. That's just like the biggest compliment I could ever think of. you know?
Yeah, yeah, but It's so in keeping. I mean, I could imagine having like on one arm, "What have you done to deserve your eyes today?" and then on the other, "Memento Mori." And if you've got those two things written on you, you are gonna get shit done. It is a
Right.
permanent
Mhm.
reminder. And I mean,
Totally.
have you put out a T-shirt with that on? I feel like it, it needs to be. I mean, there's a money
Yeah,
maker
I've
right there.
actually Yeah, I worked with a like an designer, and we did like a little things have gotten worse capsule. And there's a "What have you done today to deserve your eyes" shirt. There's a couple of shirts about "You've lost a lot of blood." My other
Mhm.
novella that I released like last year independently. So yeah, no, I've definitely been on the merch train, and have gotten some stuff out there with like merchandise, and I want to do more. I'd love to do more with like future books. So I'm definitely open to anything.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to put in the show notes links to those T-shirts because I'm sure there will be people listening who would like to get hold of them. I mean,
For
Yeah,
sure.
although
like me.
if you pass someone on the street and you read "You've lost a lot of blood," it's like, hang on, shit, what's going on here?
Right.
Especially if you've passed a previous person saying, "What have you done to deserve your eyes?" It's like, are they falling out? Is there blood
Right.
seeping from my eyes?
Just a little unsettling, but that's okay.
Yeah,
The world
yeah,
the world needs some unsettling stuff sometimes.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, obviously, we're talking about how special this sentence is and was. Did you recognize in the moment that you were writing it that, like, okay, this line, that this is something, this is gonna really come back and it's thought provoking, people are gonna quote it? Or was it only kind of after the release when people constantly mentioned this line that you were like, oh, wow, that is the one?
Yeah, I when I was writing it, I definitely hoped that, I mean, like everything we write, we want it
Mm.
to resonate with readers. We want it to speak to people. We want it to be memorable. But as I was writing it, I definitely had those feelings where I was like, this could be something really, really special. I obviously didn't know the magnitude of what it would become, but it really, like, the book really had life breathed into it when it was released, and people just started talking about it, like on Instagram and TikTok, especially TikTok. And they started just like quoting it, and like the tattoos I mentioned, and making like reels on Instagram. That's really when the book like doesn't belong to the author anymore. It belongs to the public. It belongs to like the readers. And I always get a little sentimental when that happens, but it's like what's supposed to happen, and you kind of have to let go and let the book go and be what it's supposed to be for people, um, and have its own life and its own journey. But I definitely, while writing it, I had inklings like this could be something really special. I thought the title, first of all, like the title "Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke," I thought that's a really compelling title. I feel like people are going to pick up the book just based on that title alone. And I think with the cover art, like the original cover art by Kim Jacobson, I feel like coupled with the title and that really surreal painting that Kim did, I feel like it was like the perfect storm, and just like really captured people's imaginations and really like resonated with a lot of people. And I think that that particular line, like "What have you done today to deserve your eyes," I think it captures people because it's it's horrifying, but it's also like it is kind of uplifting when you think about it, because it's like, really, what have you done today to, you know have your health and, be functioning. That
Mm.
is something I feel like I hope people are more reflective and think about those things. So yeah, just to answer your question, I feel like I did at the time. I had like an inkling that it was going to be something special, but it really wasn't until the book just took off by storm that I was like, okay, like I have something here, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and you talk about, yeah, the idea that once you've put the story out into the world, that is then kind of owned by the readers, and the story continues to be told, and it can almost have a new life through, I guess, like criticism and commentary and things like that. So
Mhm.
then thinking about that, I know that you're working with Ryan Lewis. He's your film agent and film manager. So I want to know, thinking about taking different forms, do you have any film news at the moment with things have gotten worse? And in terms of, this is now a completely separate question, so I'm giving you the double in one. But in terms of like filmmaking and things like that, as well as getting your work adapted for the film, do you have any kind of desire or interest in screenwriting yourself?
Yeah, so okay, so I'll answer the film news first.
Mm,
Um I can say like we have a director attached for Things Have Gotten Worse, the film adaptation. I've written the script. We've been basically shopping the script around to various production companies, financiers, to see who's interested. We've also been shopping it around to various, um, you know, actors, actresses, to see, who would be willing to, participate in this project. And that's kind of where we're at. We're still looking for financing. I don't know like how much I should say at the moment, but we don't have any like major cast attached at the moment. So we are, still actively looking for that. But like I said, we do have a director attached. She's amazing. It's I She really like believes in the script and the story. She's a big fan of the original novella. So I feel really confident. I feel like her vision's going to really elevate the film and make it the psychological horror drama that I want it to be.
mm,
As far as working in screenwriting, like that particular medium, I actually went to school for writing for film and television for my graduate program. I went to Emerson in Boston, and I loved it. It was like seriously the best 2 years of my life. I met like such great people, really interesting classmates, really exceptional speakers that came to talk to us and kind of guide us on our screenwriting journey. Um, Unfortunately, because I'm so like fixed in the world of fiction right now and writing so much for, projects that are not coming out until like 2026, 2027, I haven't been able to really, delve into screenwriting for a while now. It's been a while, so I'm a little rusty at it. Um, but the last major script I worked on was last summer with Things Have Gotten Worse since we last spoke. I
mm,
adapted that novella to like a script format. um but that said, like I am totally open to working on more scripts. I feel more at home in fiction because I started writing. Well, essentially I started writing for theater when I was really young, but then I
mm,
kind of moved into fiction and then graduated to like screenwriting. I love screenwriting. I think it's a beautiful art form. I love the process of crafting and developing characters, but um, I feel more at home with like fiction, I have to say, just writing fiction. Um, but that said, a lot of my upbringing with writing for theater kind of does creep into my fiction writing, because some of my pieces are kind of, chamber pieces where it's a very small cast of characters, kind of
Mm.
limited settings. I'm always kind of thinking, how can I tell this story as efficiently as possible with as few characters, with like as limited setting. I'm always kind of thinking of thinking like a playwright almost. Um,
Mm.
but that said, I'm still totally open to working on more scripts, and um, I have some connections with really exceptional directors that are fans of my fiction work. So fingers crossed that something happens in that on that front kind of soon.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I know the last time that we spoke, we did talk a lot about your playwriting and your beginnings in that sense. So it sounds like, too, that you're saying that as well as doing the playwriting, you had done some screenwriting or some writing for film before things have gotten worse. Is that right? Or what was this? Yeah,
Yes,
go on.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I wrote Things Have Gotten Worse the year after I graduated from Emerson from my master's
Mm,
program.
yeah.
So I had worked pretty for 2 years. I was working pretty extensively just on screenplays that I was just developing, and I have like a portfolio of them somewhere on my computer, and um, they're I don't know if I'd ever like go back to them, but I definitely I think about like where I was mentally when I was writing them, and um, they are like still very special to me.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm wondering in terms of the film interest for Things Have Gotten Worse, just the order in which things happen. So, did you write the screenplay first? Did people contact you about adapting it? Did Ryan contact you? Did you contact Ryan? What was the order that all of this came to be?
Yeah, so I mean, when Things Have Gotten Worse first came out, it like exploded just on social media
Mm,
and TikTok and everywhere. And there was film interest. We had studios kind of like regularly hitting Ryan up and just wondering like, what are the rights for that book? Like, are they available?
mm,
And Ryan and I had a phone call, and he said, I really think we should develop this as a film project, but I would really like to see you write the screenplay. Which
mm,
I loved that idea, because you know I was a student of screenwriting.
mm.
I'd taken out so many loans to study screenwriting, so it
Yeah.
seemed like it was just great. It was great, and we kind of labored over how we would tell the story for quite some time, because it's a very unconventional story in the way it's told just through emails and chat logs. It's like, how do you make that more dimensional and more visual, as
Mm,
opposed to just like staring at a screen and reading text messages for the entire movie. And I wrote a couple drafts of the script. I probably wrote like two or three, maybe even four drafts, and they were good. But it wasn't until we had this director come on that
mm,
she kind of molded it and helped me refine it and really make it visually compelling, and more suspenseful, even more macabre in certain places. And the film is now just an escalation of violence from start to finish. It really like a really nuanced exploration of one person's descent into madness and her just escalation of increasingly bizarre behavior, under the control of this kind of faceless woman that we never really see until like the very end of the film. So it really wasn't until the director came on that we really refined it, got the script in the best shape I've seen it in, and now we're sending it off to, like I said, financiers and
Mm,
production companies. But it's such a process. Like
yeah,
I'm kind of I'm not the biggest fan of the movie making process because it's so slow, and
yeah,
it's like, none of it's real until you're in that theater on opening night and you're watching the movie on the screen. Like, it's just, you never know. And it's also such a dance between, like, reaching out to people, seeing if they're interested, vetting them, they vet you. It's a very intricate dance. And it's not my favorite thing in the world, but I mean, what can you do?
yeah, yeah. No, I relate to that because I've got similar things going on with the girl in the video. Although I haven't wrote the
Right.
screenplay
Yeah.
for that, that's been written by someone else. But I know how kind of back and forth and slow and how everyone's kind of dancing around. So, yeah, the way that I do it, and I know that Josh Malaman and Ryan Lewis kind of recommend this too. It's like celebrate each little victory. So it's like, okay, we've got
Yep.
some interest or we've got a director attached. Celebrate that, but don't in your mind jump to like, oh, I'm on the red carpet. It's like, no, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Something could go
Yeah.
wrong. Just like enjoy the success that you have. I think this is good for all life because I guess it's when we kind of jump ahead or we assume that we've achieved things that we haven't yet, that's when depression can hit and be really crippling and just
Hmm.
dark. And and unfortunately life can be unfair and shit can happen that really shouldn't, so we just gotta look at where we are and appreciate that moment. But I do know that it's a hell of a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, that's advice I should follow more regularly, and I know I don't. I even in publishing, you really
Mm,
have to celebrate every tiny victory,
yeah,
because it is so slow going, and it's not as slow as filmmaking and like that whole process, but it is
yeah,
slow. But you really, I've been such an advocate lately for just like protecting your mental health and
yes,
protecting your creativity. Because if you're not in a good headspace and you're
mm,
allowing yourself to compare yourself to others, or not take pleasure in the work, like the creation of what you're writing, your writing is going to suffer. So I totally believe in what you said. Like, just celebrate
mm,
every little victory, because they're few and far between sometimes,
yeah,
especially in filmmaking.
yes, yeah. When you said that you and the director made, the screenplay even more macabre, I could see because of the video, like Bob's reaction was exactly what I was thinking. Like, wow, you made it more macabre. What the hell did you do? Oh God, Eric, what have you gone and done? Which is
Smart.
also how
It's
I feel
smart.
often when I'm reading your fiction. I'm like, no, Eric, no, Eric. I want to read, but I also don't want to read. Jesus Christ. Like
Yeah,
we are
it's
gonna get to that later when we record the full episode with bodies after burning. Oh my god. But we're gonna keep on topic now with things have gotten worse. But I think Bob has
Mhm.
something to say about that, I can tell.
Well, it's just that to read things have gotten worse, and then your mind fills in gaps, right? and so in film, some of those gaps kind of get colored in a little bit. They get filled up, and I know that you don't want to go too far out there, but at the same time, with restraint, the possibilities are endless. And
Mm.
so when you say that it's even more macabre and using that particular, specific word, I'm like, that's what I was like, oh shit. I, I was interested. I'm like really interested now. Let me get my credit card ready, so because in with the with in the skilled hands, this thing has a potential to be really really big. I'm excited, man.
I appreciate that. I have to be totally honest with you both. I and this might be controversial to say, I prefer the script over the novella. Things have gotten worse. I think that the changes we made to that story and like the developments we did, and we strengthened certain character arcs, I added new characters. I think it fills in the world and really informs the audience why Agnes descends the way she does. I'm actually like quite proud of that script. I think it's like the best script I've written, and I really just hope the movie gets made, because I
Yeah.
think it's really special, and I know readers would really appreciate it, and it would be just a great companion piece to the novella, almost as if, don't view it as like a literal adaptation of the novella. Look at it like a companion piece to
Right.
the novella. It's like almost like a cover song of like an
Yeah.
original
Yeah.
song, you
Yeah.
know?
You took the
So,
words right out of Michael David Wilson's mouth because
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
kind of
I do often say that.
yeah, we've been going through a similar process, writing the script for They're Watching, and it is I think that Michael even suggested that, hey, maybe we could do like a director's cut of the book, after if we get this thing, and that does sound really cool, but at the same time, I mean, the book is the book. I think that it's like if you go back and tinker with that, you
yeah.
know, and hearing you say that you like the script better than the book, does
Yeah.
that even tempt you to go back and tinker with the novel and say, preferred Arthur's edition or something like that?
I I think that's a great question, but no, it doesn't, because the novella already exists. It is what
Right.
it is. It's,
Hmm.
it was published with Weird Punk, and then now it's re-released through Titan Books. There was a point when it was sold to Titan that I thought, "Ooh, maybe I'll go back in and like add some things and change things." But by that point, I felt like the book didn't belong to me anymore. Like the book
Mm.
belonged to readers, and it belonged to people on TikTok, it belonged to YouTube, it belonged to Goodreads. Like it wasn't my place anymore to change it and like try to control the narrative of the book, because the book already had like its narrative and its life cycle, and it's still having its life cycle, and it's not my place to change that anymore. Like I have to kind of accept I can't control it. So I mean that's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think it's such a great place to be adapting for the screen and then feel like, you know what, I think this is even better. And I
Hmm.
mean, I I think to a point, I think that about their watching. I don't know if I've ever expressed that to Bob. He's like, "What the fuck? You think the script we're writing is better than the book? God damn it!" But I just think it like adds other layers, and then the story is continuing. But in my mind, these fictional characters that we create, they kind of exist, even though they came from our minds. So then it makes me think, well, let's take like in there watching we've got Brian and Yuki are the two main characters. It's like, well, what are they really doing? What really happened to them? Because there's deviations in the script and book, or have we got some weird kind of reality where there are different timelines? I mean, maybe that exists too. Maybe there's another reality where, I don't know, Eric and Bob are hosting This Is Horror. This is the timeline that we've got now. It involves me, but I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a question attached to that. It's just my kind of weird timeline story thoughts that I'm
Musings.
throwing out there.
Musings.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, I think that's really interesting. I mean, like, it kind of, what you were saying just about, um, the different versions of the same story, it kind of creates like a little universe for you
Mm,
that, people who are so invested in your work, they can kind of live in this little universe that you've created and really kind of enjoy every aspect of it. I think that's really, um, that's, fodder for really rich storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
mm, yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. And at the moment, I'm adapting my short story, What Would Wesley Do? And because it's a short story, it's obviously now the screenplay is much longer. But now that's making me think, oh, I could rewrite this and expand this into a novella or a novel. And of course, that's what
Mm-hmm.
Haruki Murakami did with the Wind Up Bird Chronicle. It initially started as a short story. Now, don't worry, I haven't lost the plot and I'm not having these illusions of grandeur where it's like, well, Haruki Murakami, Michael David Wilson, kind of the same thing. But I do think, yeah, that there's probably more mileage in terms of transforming a short story into like a novella or a novel rather than, I guess like having a novella and then being like, well, here's another version of the novella. And I guess too it depends, in terms of the reach of the original. So like with that particular story, it was on No Sleep podcast, and that's the only audience it's had. So pretty niche. But with Things Have Gotten Worse, as you say, that went viral. So it's not like people are gonna be like, oh, it's like, yeah, I think I've read the story before.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, people are going to have, if the movie does get made, people
Mm,
are going to go to it and expect certain things and maybe be
mm,
disappointed with certain choices that I made in the script adaptation process. But I think people will really appreciate the complexity I've added to Agnes and Zoe's relationship,
mm.
and just that, like, that escalation of violence is just like really important to me and the director to kind of just carry the film through its structure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, since we're talking about, the novella, why do you think the novella is such a perfect form for the horror story?
I think because it's concise. I think horror really, I think Richard Matheson said this at one point. He said, like, horror, you can't really sustain dread for more than like 300 pages or 400 pages. Like, those kind of books, um, those books are great, but it's very difficult to capture someone and keep them horrified for long periods of time, because they're obviously going to like set the book down, they're going to do other things, reflect on it, and then come back to it. But with a novella, you have like a little micro novel there, and people can just sit down and read it in one sitting and be kind of lost in this world for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, the 2 hours it takes to read the novella. I love novellas. I think they really are like the perfect form of horror fiction. And I'm so excited that novellas have kind of made like a comeback lately, especially in
Mm,
horror, like the indie horror scene. I see a lot of presses opening for novella submissions. Even like larger imprints, they seem to be interested in the novella. Even like Tor Nightfire
Yeah.
will look at novella
Yeah.
submissions, which is pretty rare for a publisher of that status to look at something less than a novel, like word count wise. Um, so yeah, no, I feel very strongly about novellas. I wish every project I could write were a novella because they're also very um they're very satisfying to write in that they don't take a lot of time for me at least to write. I can really get lost in that world, write it, and it's not as time consuming as writing like a 70,000 word book.
Mm.
A 20 or 30,000 word novella. It's not as time consuming for the reader and for the writer.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And yeah, I mean, Tor Nightfire, I think hopefully they're going to bring the novella even more into the mainstream because, of course, we've got kind of smaller presses like Tenebrous Press and Ghoulish doing a lot of good things with the novella, but to see someone like Tor really champion it, I think that's just an exciting time for all of us.
I do too. I mean, you really don't see that, and I think it's great. I really do think like novellas are going to be more prominent in just fiction in general, because I think our attention spans are shortening,
I
and
was about to
I
say
think
that.
yeah. I think novellas are like the perfect read for people, because like I said, they're not too time consuming, and you can get through them pretty quickly, and you can develop that atmosphere in a really short period of time, and just kind of surrender to the book that you're reading.
mm. Talking about kind of, I guess, diminished attention span, I've noticed, and it's kind of at the fringes at the moment, but there's a little bit of a rise in people writing episodic fiction, and I think Amazon are going to be pushing this in terms of with ebooks as well. So rather than releasing a novel or a novella, there are people who are almost releasing chapters or sections or episodes.
Mm.
Is that anything that you've considered that you'd be open to, and what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of exploring that as a form to tell a story?
I've definitely thought of it. I was talking to Doug Morano of Bad Hand
Mm,
Books, and we were talking at one point of doing like something episodic, just like
mm,
releasing bits of a larger story. The drawback to that I see is I wouldn't feel comfortable releasing the episodes um, until I had finished the whole piece. I
mm,
can't imagine releasing something like a snippet of something and then, you know, going forward and then realizing, oh wait, no, I have to change what I wrote like in the first segment I released. Like that's the only major drawback I can see with something like that. But otherwise I think it's great. I mean, I know um didn't like Stephen Graham Jones do a maybe not an episodic series, but he did something like on Amazon, like a small short story, um, like a series. I think that was like part of a series. Maybe I'm mixing it up with someone else, but I think the shorter fiction is it's where I feel like I thrive, especially, um, and I'm totally open to those sort of projects.
yeah, yeah. And I have seen two approaches to this. Obviously, the safer one I consider is, as you say, writing the whole thing first and
Hmm.
then
Mhm.
releasing the episodes. But there are certainly writers that they write kind of like the first episode, but they haven't written everything yet. And certainly in the way that I write, like my novels, it's like that seems very dangerous because it's only when I finish the entire thing, it's like, oh yeah, I've got to go back to chapter one and put this in to foreshadow what's actually going to happen. Um, so I
Right.
just couldn't imagine, you know, because then you're almost too committed, and you're gonna get a situation like the television series Lost, and interviewing the cast, and it's like, well, how is it going to end? It's like, we don't have a clue. We didn't know until we filmed that episode. So I I
Mm-hmm.
just think you don't want to get lost like Lost.
Right. I think,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, we could talk more about this in the next segment, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to really reveal this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm working on a trilogy of books that Titan has purchased, and they're going to be releasing like 2026, 2027, and so on. But I sold the books on proposal, but I want to make sure I finish the trilogy before the first book is published, like in print, because I can't like all the books have been outlined, and I know the structure, and I know like the character arcs that I want to convey and everything, and illustrate, but I can't imagine releasing part of something and not having the other components like kind of done in some way. That's just how I operate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congratulations again on winning the Novella of the Year. For listeners who want to
Thank
hear
you.
more Eric LaRocca, and I would assume that is all of you, then you can listen to our conversation from last year, episodes 431 and 432. And at the time that you're hearing this, you will also be able to hear another two-parter, which actually we're literally going to record in a few minutes. So I can't tell you exactly what we're going to talk about, but it's mind-blowing. Some of the revelations that Eric comes out with, and Bob has a moment too. So you're going to love it. That's probably going to be about episode 486 and 487, but you can use the search function to find out exactly when those came out. So, congratulations again, Eric.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.